Welcome back to the Alex Witherow Show. Today I have a very special guest. She is a licensed sex therapist. She got her undergrad degree at UVA and her master's degree at Johns Hopkins University. Vanessa, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Alex. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we have an interesting conversation today. I'll start us off with just the obvious question in my mind. What is the state of the union of sex in Miami?
In Miami?
Yes.
In Miami specifically?
Miami, yeah. This is your domain.
So Miami is a very special place when it comes to sex. It is a place unlike, I think, any other place in the country because I think there's such an abundance of sex here.
I never noticed.
No? You haven't gone down the street and seen what there is?
Right.
But I do think that the sexual relationships here are more, I would say, surface level and based more on like looks and money and like kind of what you can get from like your body if you are a woman.
A transactional nature.
Yes, but not for everyone.
Okay.
But I do find that that is a common theme here that can actually be really empowering for a lot of women. I do find that a lot of women find a lot of like, they love it.
They love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, as someone who is a romantic at heart, I mean, is romance dead? Have the apps killed it? I mean, what's the situation?
I think it's really hard with the apps. They create a dynamic in which there are so many options out there that monogamy can be very hard. Mm-hmm. And I always like to talk about this with people that there was a study actually with prairie voles. Have you ever heard of a prairie vole?
No.
It's like kind of like a rodent, and they put so there's two different kinds of voles. One type of vole, but they're in different types of different parts of the country. So in one part of the country, the prairie voles are monogamous, and on the other side of the country, the prairie voles are polyamorous, and polyamory can mean whatever that means to someone, meaning they have multiple partners. And they put them through this study where they put the mate of the monogamous prairie vole and they took it away and they did everything they could to try to make it as difficult as possible for these prairie voles to get back to their mate. And what they found was the monogamous prairie voles would go through hell on earth to get back to their mate. So they would swim, they would walk on an electrocuted wire, and they would do anything to get back to their mate. On the other hand, the polyamorous prairie voles did not go through the same kind of extensive tasks that the monogamous ones did. And I kind of feel like that is kind of where we are because there are so many options. I don't think it is for everyone, so I don't want that to be a generalizing statement, but I do think that monogamy, especially in Miami, is difficult because there's so much here. So I do think it kind of goes back to that prairie vole polyamorous versus monogamous.
As someone who's lived here only 2 years now, there's just a lot of good-looking people here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, in my opinion, the apps can give you the perception of many options, but I wouldn't say they're actually well suited for you. Would you agree?
Yes, but I also think the problem with the apps, too, is it is based on looks, right?
Right.
And I think a relationship really is how you feel with that person. Like, how does that person really make you feel? And I think it takes out a lot of the aspects of a relationship like that we've had traditionally. So like proximity was really important for relationships before we had apps and before we had technology. And now we don't see that as much because people are going on dating apps and they can see someone who's 50 miles away or they're in a different country.
Right.
So I do think like some of those like constants that they had back then are not as present now.
I feel like I hear about that a lot. You hear about someone who's an attractive woman and she's getting offers from suitors in Dubai or other cities. They're throwing money at them. They're flying them out.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see that a lot?
In my own practice, but in Miami, yeah. I think a lot of like very beautiful women, they like to be taken care of. Not all women, like this is like, it's just based on what the person likes, but yeah, especially in cities like Miami and Dubai, and I imagine LA too a little bit, but I think these are like the hubs.
Sure. So I guess, historically, you would be confined by just the men in your village or town.
Yeah, literally.
And now this has opened up the world, the entire planet.
Yeah.
It seems as though, and I've heard this about dating apps, is that there's a concentrated amount of interest for the top 5 or 10% of men and women.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I've heard of that. I've heard of that. I also heard that Hinge will not give you the matches that like you would actually get along best with.
Really?
Unless you pay.
Unless you pay.
Yeah, they put
That
a
is
paywall.
sadistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is completely sadistic.
But also think of the business model of Hinge.
Right. It's a casino. You got to come back.
They've got to come back. You know, it's a SaaS product, a subscription by service. So like they want you to come back because when you come back, you spend more money,
Right.
you spend more time on their app. You can get ads. So there is a lot of capital to gain for people to not find their match.
So you would almost consider a dating app almost like a relationship casino.
I think it's hard to say it's a relationship casino because like I feel like a casino is based on like a variable interval schedule where like you're not sure where your next reward is going to come from. But I think on dating apps you could, depending on what your reward is, you could kind of get that.
Yeah.
You just might not get love.
Right.
You might not get your husband or wife or
Right.
partner.
Right. It does seem like, getting laid on an app's not that hard.
Yeah.
But like finding your
that is
finding your
hard.
spouse.
Yeah, that is
Probably
hard.
not the best spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who have found love on Hinge. I actually saw one of my friends, she met her partner on Raya, and they're a great couple.
Raya is like the high class Hinge, right?
Yeah. One you have to get you have to apply for, I guess, or get referred, and then you have to wait and pay for it. Yeah.
Right. So tell me, I mean, I'm fascinated by this. You work with people all the time. Your specialty is obviously in sex with relationships. What are you hearing? What are the biggest issues and problems that are coming out with? And let me ask you, are you working mainly with couples, married couples?
So I work with a variety of different individuals. I work with individuals and couples. So I actually am licensed in Virginia and Florida. So I see clients. I got my master's at Johns Hopkins, and then I worked at a private practice in Virginia before I opened my own private practice. So a lot of my clients and a lot of my people are still in Virginia, and it is a completely different culture than here in Miami.
How so?
Well, tonight I'm going to like a promoter dinner for therapists.
A promoter dinner for
A
therapists.
promoter dinner for therapists. I didn't even know this existed.
I'm not even sure what that would look like. I'm like, in my mind, I'm seeing like bottle service with flames coming out of the bottle with like a bunch of like kind of, intelligent, wonky people.
Well, I wish that there was bottle service and the candles and everything. I wish. Unfortunately, no. It's in Brickell, but it's basically done by like a treatment center where they get therapists to go so they can sell their program. That doesn't happen in Virginia. I'll tell you that right now.
So they're going to sell their program to different people around here.
Yeah, it's almost like because they're going to give a sales pitch, they pay for dinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you had a client that was like suicidal, you might want to send them to their program because like about them.
Okay. Interesting. Tell me, how did this become an interest to you? Obviously, and what did you study at UVA?
I studied psychology.
Okay, psychology major at UVA.
Yep.
What was your master's at Johns Hopkins in?
Clinical mental health counseling.
Clinical mental health counseling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have my master's in science in clinical mental health counseling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what drew you to this industry initially?
Oh, I had an 18-year apprenticeship in all different kinds of mental health disorders.
Okay.
I call it my childhood.
Okay. Oh yes, those 18 years.
Yes, those 18 years. So I had a vast experience, and I actually had a really good therapist.
Okay.
When I was in middle school and high school, that really changed my life. I
Yeah.
had a lot of really bad therapists, and then I had this really good therapist that like completely altered the course of my life. And ever since I met with her, I wanted to become a therapist.
Interesting.
And along the way, I kind of picked up, I was like, oh, I kind of like talking about sex. It's kind of a fun thing.
Right.
And it's also so taboo and so stigmatized that
Right.
people don't like to talk about it. But when you give people a chance to talk about sex, they talk about it.
So what are common themes you are hearing in your practice currently? Let me ask, if I say, what do you hear mostly from women, and what are you hearing from men?
So for women, I think the biggest reason women go to sex therapy is low sexual desire.
Okay.
And pain during sex.
Okay.
I treat both of those things. And for men, I see a lot of erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
And I also see desire discrepancy a lot for couples.
What does that mean?
Desire discrepancy is very interesting. It is where one member of the couple has a higher sex drive.
Oh.
And the other one has a lower sex drive.
Okay.
And what happens from there is actually very interesting. It starts like a cycle where one partner starts blaming the other partner, and there tends to be a lot of guilt, shame, embarrassment, and blame. And they end up like completely disconnected and completely separated.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard from divorce lawyers that the number one reason for divorce is either money or sex.
I would argue it's neither of those things.
What do you think?
It's disconnection.
Disconnection.
Yeah.
And how do you think that? Do you think sex is a main driver of disconnection?
I think it can be. So when sex is good in a relationship, it adds about a 15% increase in overall relationship satisfaction.
Okay.
But when
So
sex...
it's not everything.
It's not everything.
You ask a guy that and he'll tell you it's 80%, right?
But when it's good, it adds 15. But when it's bad, here's the rub. It's a
No pun
negative. Yeah, no pun intended. It's a negative 65%.
Oh, negative 65%.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it only adds 15, but when it's bad, it drains the relationship.
Right. So basically it has, this dynamic has to be right.
Yeah. I mean, you have to come to some kind of compromise on it. I really find that for couples that cannot even talk, like a lot of couples can't even talk about it.
I feel like a lot of this kind of depends on the type of environment you grew up with.
Yeah, religion.
Yeah, that too.
Parent
Right. So
models.
my parents were very like amorous and affectionate towards each other. So
Yeah.
it's like never been like a hard thing for me to talk about. But, you know, I mean, and I think there's a continuum of how comfortable people are talking about this, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's like, on one hand, you may have someone who's at like, you know, porn star level, and then you have someone who's like totally repressed, and there's everything in between.
I mean, I've had clients who have such anxiety and panic. I mean, like physical anxiety and panic, even saying the word sex.
Where does that come from?
I don't know. So it depends on the person.
Yeah.
This was deeply rooted in trauma for this individual.
Right.
But I also feel like it comes from a lot of repression and sometimes childhood sexual abuse too.
Yeah. I would imagine that's probably the number one thing. You mentioned something about religion. How does religion and faith play into the mindset of people when it comes to sex? It sounds like this is something that is a big driver.
I always make a joke to people that the Catholic Church is my job security.
Okay.
It
Catholic
is.
guilt.
Yep. What do you see Catholic guilt as? Like, how would it affect a person?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the number one target of Catholic guilt is probably sex.
Yeah, why?
I mean, this is a not to get too historical about this, but this is actually, I mean, the Catholic Church was commandeered by the Roman Empire back in the 1500s.
Yeah.
So this was kind of Nero's way to use the church and the Catholic Church to control the population. Yep. So, you know, I would assume it's revolving something around that.
Yeah, 100%. And repression and control over women's bodies and like pregnancy and also like the fear aspect of religion really plays a part. But what's so interesting is that as soon as you get married in the Catholic Church, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
But people's brains don't switch on and off like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like their desire is like, oh, well, now that we have this document and now that we did these decrees in church, like, oh, we can do whatever we want. Like, it doesn't flip on and off like that.
It's interesting you say that because, you know, I went to college in Texas, and I went to a Christian school. Mm-hmm. And in my experience of dealing with this dynamic, it's like, I feel like a lot of people a lot of my college friends, they save the sex until marriage. But like, I feel like, especially like Baptist women, they're like, I'm going to get freaky once I get married.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like,
yeah,
I feel like that's like, you know, their whole mindset. Mm-hmm. There's like no guilt at all.
Yeah.
But like to your point, on the Catholic side of things, it seems like there is a lot of guilt.
Well, I think it depends on the person because I think in a way, I have a funny story about all of this too. I went to a Catholic boarding school, but I will get there. I think in a way, for people who really grew up very religious, it can kind of be like a trauma bond kind of thing. So either like when individuals like get out of that, either they're very sexually repressed or they're hypersexual.
Oh, interesting. So it's one or the other.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you feel like that kind of affects the dynamic in a marriage? Should they have kind of that one of those polar opposites?
So the polar opposites, it's hard because you have to come to attunement with your partner. You have to meet your partner where your partner is at. And I think either of those two things is difficult, but you also don't want to blame your partner for where they're at too. Especially when trauma is involved.
Right.
I think that can be very difficult to talk about. Different forms of trauma, especially childhood sexual abuse, is very, very difficult to talk about. And I find that that actually is the worst form of sexual abuse because it lasts throughout your lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family where my mom had experienced that when she was a kid. And I could tell you, I mean, I have no idea how it affected my parents sexually, but
Yeah.
I can tell you just from the family standpoint, it was a big emotional ride for everyone. That's interesting. So I guess, in terms of getting back to this idea of discrepancy, how do people, I guess, make a compromise if one partner has a major libido and someone doesn't? Like, how do people work that out?
Well, first I want to say thank you for sharing that with me about your
Thanks.
mom. Thank you. I think it's kind of like, all right, well, I really like to go to the dog park, and my partner really doesn't like to go to the dog park, but my partner really loves to watch football for 8 hours on Sunday.
Of course.
And I don't love to watch football for 8 hours on Sunday. However, I am willing to watch one game with my partner on Sunday if they come to the dog park with me once or twice during the week.
So there's got to be a trade.
It's just a compromise. And also to figure out, okay, what does your partner like? And like, where in the gears of touch and connection do they fall? And where can we get like more connection and more touch? Also adding in responsive desire is going to be really important for those individuals. Because responsive desire is rooted in at like sensual touch, which is the foundation of intimate attachment. So sensual touch is pretty much like cuddling on the couch, like spooning, watching Netflix with your partner, just like that sensual, affectionate touch. But a lot of times couples don't really do a lot of that, but that is actually a really great bridge to sexual desire at that time or later, because that can initiate like responsive desire.
So do you feel like there really has to be a true learning about each other, and
For sure.
like you really have to like dive in and study each other's desires, wants, needs?
Well, I think a lot of it can sometimes be nonverbal too. A lot of communication is done nonverbally, especially sexually. Humans only learned language. Language was only invented like 5,000 years ago, but we've been speaking to each other for 100,000 years. So I think a lot of communication is nonverbal, especially sexually. And I think when you're attuned to your partner, you pick up on that.
Right.
But when you're not and you're disconnected, you don't.
Right. So what do you think drives disconnection in relationships and marriages?
So I wish I came up with this, but I cannot credit this metaphor. A divorce attorney came up with it. He's amazing. His name is James Sexton. And he talks about disconnection. He has this metaphor called blowjobs and granola. So
Interesting.
So it's a heterosexual couple, and the woman really loves this granola that comes from the farmer's market, and her husband knows that she loves this granola. So it is always stocked in the cabinet for her. Every weekend he goes to the farmer's market, picks the granola up, and makes sure that granola is never empty. And she knows that her partner really loves blowjobs.
Right.
So she makes sure.
It's always a crowd pleaser.
Yeah. I mean, well, usually.
For the most part.
For the most part. But like disconnection happens when the granola is empty and it doesn't get filled back up again.
Right.
And then she decides, I'm not going to give my partner a blowjob today. I'm just going to wait and have sex so we can both have pleasure. And I think that's where disconnection really is. It's in those like small moments where you're like, okay, I'm not going to do this, or we're going to do this and do this in a different way. And I think that breeds a lot of like things down the line.
So it's really like, as you've put, if you're not keeping the granola stocked in the pantry, you're playing with fire.
Yeah, and also like losing the plot. If you lose the plot, you're kind of fucked.
What does that mean, losing the plot?
Losing the plot. So like in a movie, you know, when like the plot kind of like, or a TV show. Have you ever watched a TV show and like you're on the second or third season and like it's just kind of like blah?
Yeah.
They lost the plot.
Right, right.
Like the plot isn't interesting anymore because like they kind of lost it. The writers lost it. And that's the same as relationships. But it's not always a bad thing to lose the plot. Unless you tell your partner, hey, like, I feel like we lost the plot and how can we get it back? And I think it's really good when partners don't react in defensiveness and they're like, what do you mean we lost the plot? Like, instead of saying that, being like, yeah, you're right. Like, we've been spending way too much time, like, parenting and all these things, and we haven't spent enough time with each other. We haven't gone on a date.
Let me ask you, and this is something my married guy friends have dealt with quite a bit, is if you have 2 or 3 kids, and I can think of 2 couples in my mind. One and this guy and his wife are excellent at prioritizing each other. Good. And they've made it very clear to their kids, hey, my wife comes first, and then you guys.
Yeah. And
then I have another friend who's in an almost exact opposite situation where, the work and the kids come first and he comes last. And I would tell you they're not in a good place. I know that for a fact.
How's their sex life?
I would venture, actually, he told me this, and I don't think they've had sex in years. So, I mean, that's a long time.
They lost the plot.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
They lost more than the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say is a sign of losing the plot? What are the warning signs of that, and how do you get back on track?
It's a great question. I mean, one, if you haven't had sex in years, you lost the plot a long time ago.
Right.
If you haven't gone on a date in years, you lost the plot.
I mean, I would think that if you haven't had sex if you're married and you haven't had sex in a couple of weeks, that's probably a bad sign.
It depends on the couple. A low or no sex relationship is, I think, 10 times or less, or maybe it's 6. Don't quote me on that. I don't know the statistic exactly. It changes based on which author you're going from, like Barry McCarthy, whatever the expert is in that realm.
They would say 6 times a month is on the low side.
Oh no, 6 times a year.
6 times a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, 6 times a year is on the low side. What would be moderate?
I mean, it's hard to quantify these kinds of things because I think it depends. It depends on the person too. I think it also depends on what area you're in your life. Like if you have children and you have a newborn and the newborn is screaming all night, I don't know if you're going to want to have sex with the newborn screaming all night.
I mean, what I've heard from my married guy friends is that during that period of time, it's just, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very challenging. And that's just kind of something I feel like everyone knows that you're going to be in a low season during that time. Do you ever get any clients who are going through that and one partner is struggling, one partner's not as much?
Yeah, so that's the desire discrepancy. That's kind of where it starts. I actually find that a lot of women, after they give birth, and especially if they breastfeed, they don't want their breast touched.
Totally.
Because it's not erotic anymore. Yeah. And also touch sometimes is difficult for mothers because they associate touch with a nurturing and their baby or their child, and they do not associate it with eroticism.
Oh, interesting. So it changes the frame through which they see that kind of behavior.
Yeah, because you become conditioned to it. It's classical conditioning. So if you are only touched in a nurturing way and you only touch your child in a nurturing way, your brain automatically associates touch with nurturing and not eroticism.
Right. So I know this has been a hot topic online. And I know this is, there's been a lot of articles I've seen lately with the rise of men spending a lot of money on OnlyFans, pornography, all this stuff. How is that affecting sex in marriages?
I think it's hard. I think pornography creates unrealistic expectations, especially, I mean, for men and women. I mean, men are expected to last how long, or their penis size be this long, or their bodies be like this, and the women too. Right. How their vulva is supposed to look, how they're supposed to act, and it really creates unrealistic expectations, which can be difficult.
Do you see this birthing more kind of crazy fetishes, more eroticism? Do you see clients who are like, I feel like, my husband's watching this stuff and now he wants me to like, wear a mask and whip him with a chain or something? Or do you feel like that's happening a lot?
So I think now is a good time for people in kink. I think the kink world and the fetish world is more open. I don't think those come from porn. I think if you have a kink or you have a fetish and like that's always kind of been there and like the porn just kind of gets it to the surface. And that's not always a bad thing, especially if it's a fetish and if a kink and a fetish are different because a kink is something you really enjoy in sex and a fetish is something you need to orgasm.
Right.
So if you have a foot fetish, you are not going to orgasm if feet are not involved in the sexual encounter.
Okay.
And a kink is a little bit different. You just really like that. So I think the pornography is hard. I think because of the accessibility, it creates sometimes an out of control sexual behavior for people. Which, interestingly enough, is actually like a coping mechanism for a lot of different disorders. And true out-of-control sexual behavior is actually OCD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Describe that. I mean, what is that exactly?
So a true out-of-control sexual behavior is when you cannot stop. No matter how hard you try, and say it's OnlyFans or say it's porn, you are in that loop and you cannot get out of it no matter how hard you try. I have had individuals share with me that they prayed their partner would catch them so they could stop and they could get out of this loop. And for that, you really need medication.
How does medication, and I would assume you're saying medication would treat the addiction.
So medication treats the OCD.
Okay.
A true out-of-control sexual behavior is someone with OCD. You would treat the OCD with, usually I think it's an SSRI, but I don't prescribe. I would probably send someone to a psychiatrist for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Have you had any clients do that? Is it effective?
Yeah, it's effective, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have to calm your thoughts.
Right.
Yeah, because it's the thoughts that drive the behavior.
Right. At what level would you consider someone OCD as opposed to just kind of run-of-the-mill male interest in, online porn?
Can you stop?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if they can give it up cold turkey, and like, do you have these conversations with men when they're having these issues with their wives and whatnot?
If there's an out of control sexual behavior, I absolutely talk about it. But it's difficult if you're working with a couple because I don't keep secrets in couples therapy.
Right.
And an out of control sexual behavior with porn, sometimes their partner will see it as cheating, as an affair.
Right.
And if it is an ongoing thing, they are not willing to tell their partner, I will not work with that couple because there's no point. Like, they're not willing to tell them.
Yeah, you gotta be honest.
Like, and that's deemed as like an affair, so that's difficult. But if we have open communication, open dialogue, I really kind of want to figure out, okay, like what's going on, like actually with this person, because out of control sexual behavior is highly comorbid with many different disorders. It's actually more of a coping mechanism than anything.
You're saying porn uses.
Yeah.
What are they? I mean, do you feel like it's like self-medication, numbing?
Yeah. So like depression.
Right.
So it really gives you that like dopamine hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And is this something you're seeing more and more of in your work?
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I'm seeing with a lot of younger people.
Younger people?
Yeah.
Like how old exactly?
Like 18.
18.
Or younger.
Do you think that the newer generation, the younger generation, has been just extensively been exposed to all this?
Oh, yeah.
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 Right. Because I remember, I'm old enough to remember when I was a young kid, but like the internet turned on and it was at that time, access to this stuff really wasn't like that ubiquitous. Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I mean, it's just everywhere now.
It's everywhere now.
Yeah.
I mean, almost like in our culture too, the first question you asked me is like Sex in Miami is like, you go to the gym and what do you see?
Right.
Boobs. A lot of boobs.
Right.
A lot of butts. And like, that's everywhere.
Right.
It's a highly sexualized culture.
Right. And I guess compared to what you see in Virginia, I assume you deal with different things there.
Yeah, very different things in Virginia versus Miami, for sure. I would say Miami is I don't know. I've had some very interesting people in Miami. In Virginia, I find individuals, I work predominantly in Northern Virginia, and that's where like a lot of individuals from the government work, and, you know, three ladies.
Oh, that's a really pure area.
Yeah. Super pure.
I'm sure there isn't anything crazy going on there.
No, especially like with Congress or any senators,
Right,
you
right.
know?
They're known for being very clean.
Yeah, super clean. Super. But yeah, I think Miami, it's absolutely wild here.
Yeah.
I actually found, you're going to love this, a common theme here is women like getting pregnant and extorting men.
Extorting men.
I had never seen that before moving here.
So, like, when you say extorting men, like, what do you mean exactly?
They extort them.
How so?
To have an abortion.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they basically frame it saying, I'm going to have this kid unless you give me X amount of money.
X amount of money or plastic surgery.
Oh, they leverage it for plastic surgery?
Yes. And
Wow.
this is not something I've seen once.
You've seen this multiple times?
Multiple times. And there have been instances where the woman actually has the child.
And still gets the BBL.
Yeah. And still gets the money and whatever she wants. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like, that is a common theme I've been seeing here.
Boy, it's wild out there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, where when you see these things, I mean, where are these people coming from? I mean, is this just kind of run of the mill behavior around here, or?
I have no idea. This has been a new theme in the last about year or so. I've seen multiple clients that this has happened to,
And they come to you and they say, "I'm in this."
It's very
pickle.
Yeah, it's
Sorry
very
for
distressing.
lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And they're like, "I'm being extorted over a baby."
Yeah. And because it's really difficult for men because men have no control.
Right.
No control at all. What are you going to do?
Right.
You can't force a woman to go get an abortion.
Of course.
No.
Yeah.
Especially in Florida now with the laws being so strict.
Right.
So it's really distressing for men.
Wow. I mean, if you had like a son who was 20 years old and you knowing what you know, I mean, what would you tell your son about the world as it is?
I would say sex is good. Communication and sex is even better, and talking about consent is the most important. There's like 6 principles of sexual health, and I would teach those to my child and hope that what I did was enough.
What are the 6 principles?
The 6 principles of sexual health is protections from STIs and pregnancy, clear communication, consent, non-exploitative sex, so like not having pressure on the person, or like I can't remember the other ones. I don't remember the other ones. I can look them up.
I'm quizzing you. This is
yes, it's a quiz. It's a good quiz. Well, you know what's funny? In grad school, I had zero education in sex. We skipped over the paraphilia chapter in the DSM.
Why?
They don't talk about it.
Interesting. Why is that?
I don't know. You'll have to ask Johns Hopkins.
Huh, interesting. Do you think that, there's always kind of discussion about the female orgasm, and it's kind of this mysterious thing, right?
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
I would say that only 33% of women can orgasm from penetration alone.
Okay.
So
it's not that common.
So a penetrative orgasm is not that common. There are multiple different kinds of orgasms, and I would say the clitoral stimulation orgasm is probably the most common for women, and multiple stimulation is even better. Yeah.
Do you find that, this is an issue in marriages that people that deal with, that, is that ever something that comes up, or is it more of the sex drive discrepancy?
Orgasm doesn't really come up.
Okay.
I think if you're attuned to your partner and you know what they like, you can usually get to them to come pretty quick. Not pretty quick. I think women take a lot longer to warm up. It takes about 40 minutes for a woman to have an orgasm.
40 minutes, right.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems like I've always kind of heard this from my married guy friends, where it's like, if you yourself want to have sex that night, it's best to start in the morning over text or something, provocative to them to get them thinking about it.
Yeah, so that's responsive desire. Like spontaneous desire doesn't happen to a lot of people, especially as you age.
Right.
So like the responsive desire is kind of like getting in the mood and being like, sending like a sexy text, like, like you look really hot in that, and like
Yeah.
kind of starting that process.
So you're saying that as you get older, it's more and more important to start that process earlier in the day.
Yeah, and also like more touch too, and more stimulation is important.
Okay. Gotcha. Interesting. Tell me, I mean, I know you are up to some interesting work currently. You're developing a product, I know.
Yes.
I think it revolves around AI, right?
It does. So I was really pissed off because my education to become a sex therapist cost about
You
$20,000.
got to make that back.
Yeah, but also like $20,000.
Right.
That's insane.
Right.
And
I feel like that's a discount for John Hopkins.
oh no, that was after Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
So I went to University of Michigan to get an advanced certification in sex therapy.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it took 2 years to get that certification, just the education piece alone, and then you need 50 hours of supervision
Okay.
to become a certified sex therapist.
Okay, so this is like
This
takes some work.
It takes a lot of work. So you need to get your master's, and then you need to get your advanced certification. And the advanced certification cost $20,000. My master's probably cost 70 or 80.
Oh, so this is in addition to grad school and undergrad.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
So I really had enough of that. And because the education is so expensive, our rates are expensive
Right.
as sex therapists because we
Because
put the work in.
Yeah, you put the work in. You've got to make this up. You've got probably loans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part of being a therapist, especially a sex therapist, is when someone comes to you really needing help and you don't have a sliding scale available.
Right.
So I do offer sliding scale like patients, but I only have so many of those. So what I did was I leveraged AI and I created a custom AI, and I put about 5,000 resources in this AI to think like me. These are
Wow.
5,000 resources that I have gone through as a therapist and as a sex therapist that I have read and I've gone through, and I have put those resources in this AI so the response is my response.
And these are things you've written as well, and all your dissertations, and amazing.
Yeah, all of my interventions are in there. I even created a specialized program for people to go through based on their I have 2 currently, which is vaginismus, so that's pain during sex.
Okay.
And for men over 55, they are experiencing a lot of difficulty with sex. So I also made a personalized journey for them.
What are men over 55 struggling with?
Erectile dysfunction,
Okay.
performance anxiety, their partner not being able to get the same kind of arousal levels, the same kind of wetness, menopause, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because like no one really prepares you for that.
Right.
No one prepares you for the first time your erection is not 100% hard. They don't. They don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of where
Just drink like 5 whiskeys and you'll find out real fast.
yeah. But then after you drink 5 whiskeys again, what are you going to be thinking about?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So this product has it been released? Is it out?
So there's a web-based version, and it will be on the App Store on May 23rd, so next Friday.
Wow, amazing.
I know.
So
I'm
you're just
super
about
excited.
to launch this.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Super cool. So who would be the target, customer for this? Is this just anyone who's struggling with sex in their relationship?
Anybody who has a question about sex. So there's a free version, and then you get like 5 like basic chats a day, and then there's like the more advanced premium version, which is only $13.
Oh, wow.
And then you can ask it anything. And what's really interesting about Sex Therapy Pro that is different from anything else is it's personalized to you.
Right.
It's not just basic information on the internet about erectile dysfunction. It learns about, okay, why are you having erectile dysfunction? What are the thoughts going on in your mind?
Yeah.
Or like that go along with this.
So have you tested, I assume you've tested this out on people.
Yeah. We did.
What are you seeing so far?
So we did a lot of beta testing, and we got a couple hundred users on the web-based version. And what we found is that people really, really want a mobile app, and not only
On the go.
on the go, yeah, and they want a progress tracker. They want to
Interesting.
see that they are making progress. So what we're doing is we're doing like a little bit of an intake. So it's not going to be when it's released. This is like version 2.
Okay.
So we're doing an intake where it's like, okay, I'm a male, I'm a woman, I'm non-binary, and these are the issues I'm having. And then it creates a personalized journey for you with exercises and the chatbot. And then you can see based on whatever issue you're having.
Exercises for progress. Like, what does
Yeah.
that look like? like exactly?
So cognitive behavioral exercises.
Okay.
So for performance anxiety and erectile dysfunction, a lot of what happens for men is they lose their erection and immediately they go into their head like, what's wrong with me? Is this going to happen again? It's an extremely shameful and embarrassing thing for men.
I would tell you that just knowing a lot of guys, it happens a lot more than you might think.
Oh, as a sex therapist?
You probably know too.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like every guy at
Yeah.
some point has had a misfire.
Everyone. And
Yeah.
that's going to happen. And I always tell people erectile dysfunction is cured not when your penis gets hard whenever you want. It is cured when you do not have the snowball and anxiety like pitfall afterwards.
Interesting. So it's I guess, and let me ask you, like, I mean, if a couple is struggling with sex, is this something that they would use this product, during sex or before, after, all the above?
Definitely not during sex.
Not during. Okay, yeah.
I would not
don't
find
don't
it.
be typing away.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hey. Yeah, no.
Probably not the best time.
I would always say before a sexual experience is the best time. Actually, not even before or after a sexual experience, like long before you're going to have that sexual experience, like the day before or like the morning before, because like when you get into that, it's a very vulnerable place.
Right.
And it's hard for people to take feedback, especially criticism.
Right. I guess, it's interesting to me. I feel like if you're married to someone, it would be easy to like have this conversation, but it isn't always.
It's not easy.
Yeah, and it really kind of depends on your background and
Yeah.
how comfortable you are talking about these things.
Yeah, what might something be that you might hesitate you from talking to your partner about this if they have low sexual desire?
Right. And that's, I mean, I think as a guy, like if you're a guy and you marry someone and you kind of learn that they have a lower libido than you do, I think as a guy, that's like, oh, this is like a big problem, but it seems, I mean, you're making it sound like this is solvable.
Oh, it's solvable 100%. We just have to come to some sort of like compromise on things. It's never going to make or break your relationship, I found.
Right.
I will say there is fatally flawed relationships when it comes to sex, and I do find that when there is no attraction, and attraction is complicated, and in a prior affair, it is very difficult to come back from that.
Prior affair, totally understand that.
Well, it's both no attraction and prior affair.
Right.
Prior affair can be solved, actually. And I've been very successful at rebuilding individuals' relationships because of an affair, because there's meaning behind it.
Right.
There's a reason why you had that affair.
Right. And that you're unpacking that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whatever led to that affair, and yes, the affair is super hurtful and you have to process that too, but there's meaning behind that. And if you come out stronger after that affair than before, that's the meaning.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of, I mean, how can couples use this AI product to really, I mean, what I'm learning about AI is that a lot of it just has to do with how good of prompts you give it. The prompts are like really important because it can give you all kinds of amazing information.
Yes.
So, I mean, what types of prompts would you recommend people put into it?
So there are already prompts on there. So it's like, how do we rebuild intimacy after affair? Or how, like, there's a desire discrepancy. What do we do? What is a sensate focus exercise? How to overcome performance anxiety. So those are all prompts on there. But I also think it's helpful to have the exercises to tag along with it. These are exercises I use in a therapy room, and I've just systematized it and put it into different buckets. So like performance anxiety, low sexual desire, and then the AI will suggest those for you.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Interesting. I mean, AI, I've gotten to learn a lot more about AI just in general in the last few months, and I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I love it, but like therapists hate it.
Yeah.
I got banned from the therapist Reddit.
Really?
Yeah.
For launching this product?
Yes.
Why?
They told me to fuck off. No, like in all caps, fuck off.
They think you're putting them out of business.
Yeah. But in reality, I just wanted to provide an accessible resource for everyone to have.
Interesting.
Also, what makes this product different than ChatGPT, that's a big question I get asked, is ChatGPT, what is the name of the parent company?
OpenAI.
It's open.
Right.
It pulls off everything on the internet. It doesn't just pull from the resources provided.
Okay.
A lot of information on the internet about sex is wrong.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a
What
lot.
what do you think are the incorrect things?
Oh, a lot of stuff that you watch in porn is incorrect.
Right. Okay.
I would say a lot of stuff about orgasm online is false.
What are some common misconceptions about orgasms?
Oh, that women can come from orgasm, from penetration all the time, and they should. Oh, and this is a huge common misconception that I see a lot of people, especially women, it really ticks me off, is that, oh, if a man has erectile dysfunction, oh, it's because of you. Oh, it's because he's not attracted to you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of women think that.
Yeah, a lot of women think that. And I'm fighting for my life in these comments where these
Yeah.
women are like, no, honey, he just doesn't like you that much. And that's not true. And that's actually the worst thing you can say to your partner if they have erectile dysfunction.
Right, right.
Because then it feels so shitty. Not only are you dealing with your own internal dialogue of like losing your erection, all the shame and embarrassment with that, but also like feeling horrible that your partner doesn't think that you're attracted to them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No, totally. And you said before that sometimes, people get married that aren't even really attracted to each other. I mean, how does that happen in the first place? How do they get married if they have a very weak attraction to each other?
I think it's because other parts in the relationship are amazing.
Right.
They're best friends.
I had a relationship like that like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
How did it go?
I mean, the day-to-day was amazing. But that one piece of the relationship was just flat, very
And
flat.
it's so shitty because you
Yeah.
love that person.
Yeah.
And like I can't manufacture chemistry.
Right. And I think you feel like I remember going through a very difficult mental and emotional process about this. And unfortunately, I had a great therapist at the time who helped me a lot. But I mean, I think you feel horrific
Yeah.
for not liking this or not like, I felt like I couldn't marry this person because that
Yeah.
piece was missing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's a horrible feeling because everything else is like
Amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really hard.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think there's probably a part of you that wishes that piece was there because you love that person.
Right,
and there's a lot of guilt there, I
Right.
imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Vanessa, is there anything else you want to tell us about your product?
No, it comes out May 23rd on Apple and Android. I'm super excited about it.
Very exciting.
And then I have my own private practice here in Miami.
Great. We will include all your information in the description of this video. And thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Perfect. Thank you.